when the militaristic direction of your policy choices has reached the point where active duty members of your military services are setting themselves on fire to protest what you're doing, I think it's safe to say that we may have crossed the Rubicon quite a few miles back. This whole military-industrial complex structure is completely out of control. It's running completely rampant through the American political system. It's hijacked the future of the United States. And this is the result of that. And this whole thing goes well beyond Israel and Palestine. And Aaron even said this in his statement. So we're going to take some time to look at all of this from an angle that is serious, focused, and concerned with the consequences of this for the future, of which there should be some really important ones. I'm Stuart Hooper. Please follow me if you're new here. Hit like on this, share it where you possibly can. I need all the support I can to grow this channel. You guys have been great. I provide independent geopolitical analysis here. Not tied to any political party, not tied to any institution, not tied to any money. And it's about time more people took a view that was nuanced and balanced on all of this. Because I'm sure you've seen the replies, the responses to this video from certain individuals in the social media sphere over the last few days. Really sick, disgusting, selfish responses, trying to push their own political agenda at the expense of what was going on here, what was truly going on here with Aaron Bushnell and what he just did, which he made very clear in posts online and, of course, in his final video. So let's look at this. Not the video, of course. Aaron went to the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. Here he is. And here he is in front of the embassy. And he poured a bottle of gasoline on himself and set himself on fire and passed away. But not before he said this. My name is Aaron Bushnell. I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. And then he follows through, goes up in a ball of flame, while screaming "Free Palestine" over and over and over again. Not really sure what else we can say about that. But what I want to focus on is this. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. We live in the Western world, in a society that really has had its future hijacked by the military-industrial complex. The elites in charge of these institutions, of the military, of the weapons manufacturers, of the banking industry, the politicians who pretend that they're in charge, they have all decided that endless war, endless militarism, the destruction of the planet, the destruction of humanity, the destruction of civilization, they've decided that that is the best way to reach their political goals. That is the best way to generate profit. That is the best way to stay in power. Enough is enough. This has been going on since the end of World War II, and you can trace it back even further than that. Billions, trillions of dollars in the aggregate have been wasted, burned up for literally nothing. Look at Afghanistan. Look at Iraq. Look at Libya. Look at Syria. These are just modern examples. Look at the Korean War. Look at the Vietnam War. Nothing has ever been positively achieved since the military-industrial complex has taken charge of the military in the Western world. And in the Western world, we have now also offshored our power and control over the military-industrial complex to transnational corporations and to transnational political and military institutions like the United Nations and NATO. So the idea that we get a vote on what these things do is a joke, because you don't. You have no say in what these things do whatsoever. And when you do get close to someone who looks like they might try to turn that situation on its head, I'll leave you to fill in the blank with some names there. But there are great examples in both Britain and the United States. Those people almost are always destroyed in the media and in the political sphere. Isn't that something? Now, Aaron's friend has also now done some interviews, Levi Pierpont, and he said that his friend's death was not a suicide, but he was using his life to send a message for justice. We have to honor the message that he left to get people's attention about the genocide that's happening in Palestine. Absolutely. And the wider message that this is a structural issue in the Western world. The military-industrial complex has our governments by the throat. But interestingly, this article came out, I think a day or so after Aaron did this, on the same day as some of these articles were posted about his postings on Facebook and things like that. Russia's 2024 election interference has already begun. Moscow is spreading disinformation about Joe Biden and other Democrats to lessen US military aid to Ukraine and lessen US support for NATO, former US officials and cyber experts say. If I have to hear one more time that the reason people are against things like NATO or the invasion of Iraq or the invasion of Afghanistan or sending blank checks to Ukraine is because of Russian interference, I'm going to go crazy. People are fed up with militarism, military interventionism, because it's failed consistently for over 10 years. From the war on terror, specifically. We've all lived through this. We've all seen what happened. And we're tired of having our money flushed down the drain and our sons and daughters sent off to die for nothing. This is not a Russian conspiracy. And notice, if you go through this article, and I tried to read this closely, there are a few names in here, a few senior fellows, but otherwise it's US officials and experts. Who are these people? Anyone? We'll just take your word for it, right, NBC? Sure. Here's something that we perhaps could look at and say, you know what, that whole Russian interference line, yeah, you know, maybe it's true. Maybe the Russians are interfering. Maybe they are changing public opinion on certain things. You know what the Russians aren't responsible for? These numbers. In 2020, there were 6,146 veteran suicides. An average of 16.8 per day. Adjusted for population, age, and sex differences, the suicide rate for veterans was 57.3% greater than for non-veteran adults. This stuff is upsetting to talk about. And to have the media consistently fall back on it's the Russians, it's the Iranians, it's all made up, is beyond insulting. And we all know stories of veterans by this point. I've lived in the United States now almost 8 years. I've met a hell of a lot of veterans. None of them signed up for what they were sent to do. Let's put it that way. And of course, Aaron's more specific point on Gaza and Israel, Palestine. Of course, we're making absolutely no progress on that. Gaza ceasefire deal with Israel still not close, says senior Hamas official. The senior official from Hamas said, quote, there is space for flexibility, but Hamas wants to guarantee a total ceasefire and the withdrawal of Israeli troops. And here we can see some Hamas fighters walking down the street. Oh, wait, that's a bunch of children that have had their lives destroyed. I have nothing else to say on this, except we need to remember Aaron Bushnell's name from now until forever, or from now until this military-industrial imperial structure goes away. It's time to withdraw. The United States has got its own problems. It's got plenty of money. It needs to start spending it in the right places. And it's certainly not in foreign wars that have been a consistent disaster for decades. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Subscribe if you're new, follow if you're new, hit like, share it where you can, and I'll be back with more real soon.